Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Glad to be back.
Today we're going to be talking about scarcity.
Oh, a big one.
Yeah, scarcity. And we're going to be taking a look at this article, The Economics of Scarcity. What happens when the world runs out? Which is a pretty hefty title.
Yeah, it's a long title.
But it's a really interesting topic.
Yeah.
Scarcity is obviously something that affects all of us in different ways. But it's not just about things running out. It's about how limited resources shape, really, how we live. Everything from our personal choices all the way up to, global economies are shaped by scarcity. And we're going to be looking at, how this idea of scarcity, affect how we think, why it is that diamonds are so pricey when water is, essential for life.
Right. Good question.
Yeah, and whether we're headed for, some sort of future dystopian Mad Max-style resource wars, or, will we be able to come up with solutions? And there are a lot of really interesting solutions out there.
Yeah, I'm optimistic.
I'm an optimist, too.
Yeah.
So let's jump in, I guess, to Scarcity 101.
Okay.
What is scarcity? I think a lot of people, they hear the word scarcity and they think, oh, that just means running out of something.
Right. Like we're out of milk.
Yeah, we're out of milk,
Yeah.
Got to go to the store. But it's more than that. It's about, how the limited availability of these resources
Yes.
force us to make decisions. I mean, that's really what economics is all about. It's a study of how we make choices, with these limited resources.
Yeah. And I think the key is it's not just about, how much is out there physically. It's how much we think is out there. It's perception.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like think about a limited edition item. Suddenly it's way more desirable.
Oh, yeah, the fear of missing out.
Exactly. And it goes for everything. Like if people think water is going to be scarce in the future, they start acting differently in the present, even if there's plenty right now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You start hoarding it or something.
Yeah, right. Hoarding, overpaying, you name it.
And you see this all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you see this, I was reading in this article about how, throughout history, you've got all these examples of scarcity shaping societies in very real ways.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, the Dust Bowl in the 1930s.
Ooh, tough times.
That was brutal. The agricultural collapse just devastated these communities.
Yeah, you see how resilient people can be, though, right?
That's true.
Having to adapt to those conditions.
And they did adapt.
Yeah.
They had to. And then you've got, fast forward a few decades, and you've got the oil crisis in the 1970s.
That was global.
Yeah, it's sent shockwaves through the entire world.
Yeah, that one showed how interconnected we all are, right?
Right, yeah. One part of the world has a problem, and it affects everybody.
Exactly.
But, this article gets into something that I found really interesting. They call it the scarcity mindset. Have you ever heard of this?
Yeah, it's how this constant feeling of not having enough really gets in your head and messes with your decisions.
So it's not just that things are actually scarce. It's that we start to feel like things are always scarce.
Right. And that affects how you think about everything. Like people in poverty, sometimes they get stuck in this mindset where they're just so focused on today's needs that it's almost impossible to plan for tomorrow.
Yeah. You're always in survival mode.
Exactly.
So how does that play out? Like what are some of the things that happen?
Well, behavioral economics shows us that people get kind of irrational when they're in that scarcity mindset.
Oh, interesting.
Like that loss aversion thing we talked about earlier. You make bad choices just to avoid any potential loss, even if there's a bigger gain down the line.
Oh, that's so interesting. Like you're so focused on not losing what little you have that you miss opportunities to actually gain more.
Exactly. It's like your brain's bandwidth is totally taken up by the feeling of scarcity. No space left for, rational, strategic thinking.
Yeah. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It can be. Yeah.
And it makes me think about, we talk about this scarcity mindset and I think that's really important. But then there's also the very real scarcity of these natural resources that we rely on. I mean, we're talking about water.
Yeah. Big one.
Fossil fuels, rare earth metals, all this stuff that we need to build our world, to power our world, to basically live the way that we love.
Yeah, and the more those become scarce, the more expensive they get.
Right.
Basic economics, that drives up costs for everything, leads to inflation.
Yeah. And then you get countries fighting over who gets control of those resources.
Geopolitical tensions, resource wars, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. And you see that happening now. I mean, it's not just a, theoretical future thing. This is happening right now.
Oh, yeah. And it gets even trickier with innovation, right? Like, we need new technologies to solve these problems, but sometimes those technologies
Yeah.
rely on, even scarcer resources.
Well, that's a good point.
Like lithium for batteries. Suddenly everyone wants electric cars, so the demand for lithium skyrockets.
It's almost like this paradox, right?
Totally. We're trying to innovate our way out of scarcity, but sometimes it just shifts the scarcity to a different resource.
Right, right. And then you throw climate change into the mix, and things get even more complicated.
Yeah, climate change is like this, I don't know, a threat multiplier for scarcity,
Oh,
right?
that's a good way to put it.
It's making our food and water supplies less reliable.
Hmm.
It's increasing the frequency of droughts, floods, all sorts of crazy weather that messes with how we get the stuff we need.
Yeah, it's like putting even more pressure on an already stressed system.
Exactly. And some people think it's going to lead to, like, actual water wars in the future.
Oh, wow.
Like countries fighting over access to rivers and aquifers.
And we're already seeing, I mean, I was reading about this, how cities are having to get really creative about how they use their resources.
Hmm.
They're doing vertical farming, they're collecting rainwater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, got to adapt.
They have to. But it makes me wonder, with all this talk about scarcity, how much of it is real?
Oh, good point.
Versus like perceived scarcity.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I feel like the media can really hype things up.
Oh, for sure. Remember a few years ago when everyone was freaking out about running out of gas?
Oh, yeah. People were filling up plastic bags.
Plastic bags, bathtubs. It was crazy. And it turned out to be, mostly a supply chain issue, not an actual shortage of gas.
Right, but the perception of scarcity led to this, like, panic buying.
Yeah.
And that actually created a real shortage.
Exactly. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy again. And that's where the whole diamond water paradox comes in.
Oh, right. Explain that to me again.
Okay, so diamonds, they're pretty, but they're not essential for life, right?
Right.
Water, on the other hand, we literally can't live without it.
Right.
But diamonds are way more expensive. Why? Because they're perceived as more scarce and therefore more valuable.
So it's not just about how much of something there is, it's about how much we think there is and how much we want it.
Bingo.
So it seems like we're in this precarious position, right?
Yeah, kind of. Walking a tightrope between innovation and conservation.
Right. So what can we do? I mean, is there any hope for a future where we're not constantly, scrambling for resources?
Oh, absolutely. There are some really cool ideas out there, like this whole concept of a circular economy.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
So instead of this linear model where we take resources, make stuff, use it, and then throw it away,
Right.
the circular economy is all about designing things to be reused, repaired, recycled, minimal waste, maximum resource efficiency.
So we're basically trying to close the loop.
Exactly, closing the loop. And then you've got all these exciting innovations happening in food production, like lab-grown meat.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about that.
It could be a game changer for reducing the environmental impact of, traditional animal agriculture.
It would probably free up a lot of land, too.
Totally. And then there's desalination, which is turning seawater into drinking water.
Ah.
Huge potential there, especially for coastal regions facing water scarcity.
And then there's asteroid mining, which still kind of blows my mind.
I know, right? It's like straight out of science fiction. But it does show how far we're willing to go to find new sources of resources.
It's almost like we're trying to push the boundaries of scarcity.
Yeah. But the most important thing is we can't just rely on technology to solve everything. We need global cooperation. If countries are constantly competing and hoarding resources, we're never going to get anywhere.
Right. We need to share.
We got to share. We're all on this planet together.
So it sounds like scarcity isn't just an economic problem. It's a human problem.
It really is. It's about how we think, how we behave, and how we choose to relate to each other and the world around us.
That's deep. And it kind of makes me wonder, if you could snap your fingers and make one resource infinitely abundant,
Well, that's a good one.
what would you choose?
Ooh, that's tough. It's really making me think.
Yeah, and why?
It really makes you think about what we value most as a society, doesn't it?
It does. It really does.
I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Yeah, we'll have to ponder that one for a while. But in the meantime, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the wild world of scarcity.
Always a pleasure.
And I hope it's given you some things to think about, as you go about your day, as you make decisions, just, thinking about this idea of scarcity and how it affects us all.
Yeah, it's everywhere once you start noticing it.
It really is. So until next time, keep on diving deep.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.